But then it's like I started making them, and it was like almost impossible to run away from sort of like my own creative urges, like because I wanted to make them fun or funny. And then like when we got the props, like the prop pill bottles for the Pills music video, all of my content was based around using that prop because it's like, oh, this is fun. It's like fun to have a prop, you know, and to use that, and like that opened up so many like sources of humor for me. And so then we went out and did a whole bunch of content for modern economics over the weekend. That's going to cover me for the next couple of weeks, and I made these like prop pamphlets that are like, you know, real simple, but it's just like these like simple drawings of like, you know, like 700 cups of coffee you can, you know, and it shows like a picture of like a gravestone with this Fido that's crossed out, and you don't see the props in a lot of the videos like well enough to make them out, but we keep using them, you know, like because it's fun to have a prop, and then like then the bit becomes like, oh, I keep explaining it to these like kind of almost salesman like info, which is fun, you know. And so like I would say like, you know, like I know you're trying to kind of considering now doing some of the, you know, more like quote unquote like non-passionate work for it, and like to some extent like the TikToks I make, like they're not like what I consider like my central body of work or my central art, but like part of what makes me like, I don't know, good at it, or like makes it interesting or fun or makes it something that I'm proud of now or I like now, is that like I do still feel like I find ways to express myself, but they're just limited by the fact that like I need a lot of it. I can't for hours or years, you know. But I would say like that's not like super, in a weird way, fundamentally different from like what we were doing live, where like you might not have chosen to make some of those decisions or to keep some of those decisions if you weren't on stage in front of people, but that's the constraints of the project, so you're there, and anything you did, you're running with, you know.
Yeah.
In the same way, like, you know, like in a corporate thing or in a graphic design thing, like you might not have made certain choices, but you're still going to find ways to kind of make those choices make sense for like not just the project, you know.
Yeah, but for yourself. Yeah.
Right, and sometimes it will make result in concessions, but like I think the best thing to do at the end of the day is be like, okay, this is where I really care, and I think this shit really needs a hit or do this, and this is where like, you know, I'm just doing stuff because I need to get it done, you know.
I think it comes just like with like creative maturity too, where you start to trust, where you're like, well, no, like my voice should still be a part of these things, because like otherwise I wouldn't be satisfied. And I think at first, you know, like early on, like I think I got very like, you know, disheartened and kind of dejected in a way when you'd make something and someone would be like, I don't know, this isn't really what I'm going for. And it'd be like, man, like, oh, my idea's crushed, right? And now I don't feel that way because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, probably something about it probably didn't work. Like I trust the outside voice more because I trust my own artistic voice more. But like when I didn't trust my own self more, it was always it was easier to just be like, oh God.
Right. I think too, and I feel like artists are the only ones who truly understand this. But there are some ideas that artistically are so fucking cool, and it's never a thing that's like, because like I think when you're young, you always think it's translationary. You're like, I have this great idea in my head, I'm gonna go make it, and then when you make it, it's not as good, and like to some extent, like that is when you're young, like an inability to like execute, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also like as you get older, you're like, some ideas, it's not just like some of that, but also like some ideas just aren't as cool to experience as they were to think about, you know? And it's weird to be like, yeah, like even if I had everything at my disposal, this wasn't just gonna like be as exciting as it was in theory, because the theory of it was like so fun, you know? Or sometimes like I think the other maturity of us is like leaving behind the idea for something where you thought like, oh, this is gonna be really cool. And maybe you only take a little bit of that, but you realize like, oh, this practical thing that's actually gonna work is cooler than what I was hypothetically interested in, like I'm glad I had the hypothetical idea to get me here, but also practically like doing the thing, I realized there's a different answer, or even the more obvious answer is more fun.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't know. I had all these ideas when I was younger about like form for like popular music, like what I'm making now, about being way more adventurous. And I still think there's a place for it, and I think that music can be really cool. But I think like as I get older, I realized like I underrated stuff that was more intelligible, and like the magic for me now is finding ways to make things that are, in my conception, rather simple, like feel weird because like the audience experiences it different than I think about it. Like Pills, people keep saying like, oh, it's such a weird like story of a song. It's very like, it feels like it really flows like narratively, like it's just very like complexly organized. And I think to myself like, wow, I really do verse, 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 and then a different thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it seems so simple, but like the idea of like me trying to keep that simple while not being like like a verse chorus bridge chorus, which I think there's nothing wrong with, but like either was just wasn't doing there. Me trying to keep it simple actually makes that experience intelligible while weird, And that's kind of what I've been trying to do lately. Is like with this song, Modern Economics. I do a more proper like verse chorus, guitar solo. Or I mean, maybe it's not even that. It's it's verse, guitar solo, chorus, and then an outro. And to me, I feel like, oh, this is like a simple song. I'm just doing verse, chorus, and then a bridge essentially just doesn't have a chorus at the end. That's almost a pop song structure. But then when you throw the guitar solo in the one spot, it kind of like fucks with like the perception of time. And then the left turn at the end is so weird that it's like, it's almost got this strange second halves of the song, and so like it ends up, I think, creating a weirder song than I feel like it is. Like to me, it seems so simple because it's like,
Yeah,
and that's not me being smart. It's
structurally,
just like the structure feels simple from like, and I bet you if someone else just sat down and wrote it out, they'd be like, oh yeah, this isn't as complicated as it sounds. So I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
oh no, I was just agreeing. It like fundamentally and structurally, you're getting this simple thing, but then it's not always that. I do think it's funny, like we do this in Guided Ale, and I mean I do this constantly in my own art of like always going back to like the basics and like really resting roots there, because I'm like, at the end of the day, no matter how complicated it is, like it started somewhere simple, um, and I often find where I'm like, I kind of like when people can identify what had happened, but just by like looking or listening, where they're like, oh yeah, I see how they put that together.
Yes, I love that.
Like I appreciate the mysticism of like certain art, where like, you're like, what in the world, how did this medium even exist? But it the thing I don't like about it is like the gatekeepery mysticism part of it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason to just keep secrets, especially with creativity.
Right. No, I mean my very favorite music when I got into like was still in like the really like artsy avant-garde stuff. It's absolutely, I think, the best. Like there's a place for complexity and all this other kind of stuff. When it comes to like structural complexity and complex big form ideas. But my favorite music was something like you could kind of just describe the whole thing like on a postcard.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just be like, okay, well, this is what the piece does. Like if you don't think about, I don't know if you remember being obsessed with that piece Coming Together by Jevsky, but it's like, oh, there's this text and it kind of repeats itself little by little. But there's all this like this driving bass line, and it's kind of all the same thing, but it sort of evolves, and this process of the text kind of just repeating itself, but it lengthens and then it shortens, and it doesn't always start back in the same place where it's repeating itself, and you get a little bit more of the text every time. And it really fucks with your perception of time, and that's all so cool because the text is a quote from, one of the prisoners from Attica, from the Attica prison riots, and it's kind of talking about this experience of like the monotony and the constancy of jail, but also like the idea that there's real humans in there, and so it just was a really cool and complex feeling. But like the piece in sound is relatively simple. Like you can kind of get what it's doing from the first minute. But as it goes on, it's just like you have this really complex emotional relationship with all the different things it does. Even though, conceptually, I can tell you like, oh yeah, there's this driving bass line that goes through the whole thing, and there's this text that repeats itself, and you get a little bit more of the text every time it repeats. That seems so simple, but then when you actually like are like listening to it, but yeah, those things that like feel simple or like I can tell you like all the whole piece is just like these notes sliding around or something like that. That's what the piece is. It's so profound to me when it's like, okay, that's what it is, but then you have to go and listen to it and you'd be like, oh yeah, like it does so much with that, and it's so compelling that like I almost feel like that level of simplicity can kind of allow you to just sort of be in the space, because you don't have to sit there and like orient yourself your whole time. You just are like the same way that you go outside and you're listening to like birds and crickets and shit. You're like, I'm just in the forest right now. I don't need to recontextualize this at any point. I'm just here and I can listen to it and it's nice,
Yeah, the evocation of like the feelings and the things that aren't in the composition, right? It's like maybe that's intended, but like it doesn't actually fully happen until the people are like listening and actually surrendering to being in the thing.
Right.
But like
yeah,
on
like,
paper,
it's
it just is this thing. It's like it's not that crazy on paper, but then like, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with any form of media that like just really sticks with you in particular forever.
Right.
It's like we just as organisms get to attach memory to sensation. You hear a thing and you're like, fuck, that's with me forever. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, like for like surrender, like that was kind of the whole point for me, is just this whole like it was just really cool to think about. Like I had that experience of like something can be so simple in description and even like simple like fundamentally, but then you're just like once you do it and like you really get into it, you're just like you're gonna be like the emotional and lived experience can be very complex, even though the stimulus is not complex, And I was trying to kind of simplify that the most, being like, hey, look, like the emotional experience of that piece is so much different than like if we describe what we did, people are like, wow, that's almost nothing. It's dumb.
Yeah, why did you do that?
Why did you do that? And then the people who were there are like, oh man, this was just so moving in a weird way, And
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought it was going to do too. But like, I wasn't even totally convinced it was going to do it when we decided to do it, But I was like, I wanted to find out. And I think that was the biggest success. That's always one of my favorite artistic moments, is just realizing like that dumb idea worked, and it worked
so well. Yeah, I agree. Definitely one of my favorite, like, top creative moments. Just because, especially like even if there was no one watching, that's what did it for me. Was, we sat there for a fucking hour.
Yeah.
You played G, was that right?
I played G.
You played G for an hour, and I drew a line around an entire room for an hour, and even without people there, like the people's response made it 10 times better. But in its own right, it became this like weird freaking method acting thing where we like became these two people that were like surrendering to this note, and we're like, okay, this is our job now. Like for eternity, we live in this thing, and we like can't think about like how long we've been doing it. We're just like, let's just keep going.
Well, the crazy thing for me is that like I also had such a different experience because one was watching the audience because I was removed, and I got to see them go through it. For me, that ended up being like a very like empathetic experience where like I got to see um, other people going through it with me, like they were experiencing the same kinds of things, which was exciting, you know. And then the other thing was like I was watching the clock, so I kind of knew how much time there was, and so my experience of time, it was where I had this huge empathetic experience of like watching other people kind of going through like the stages of like of coping with the lack of stimulus essentially. But then I also got to like I was watching the clock, and so my experience of time like I went through like mini cycles of what everyone else said where they're like, yeah, it took me a while, but then eventually I just kind of laid into it. Like I would have these experiences where I would kind of get comfortable and be like, all right, cool, I can do this for, however long it takes. And then eventually it would leave me and I'd be like, man, this fucking sucks and I'm only 20 minutes in. And then I go back to being like, oh yeah, I can do this forever again, Like it was this like distinct, I don't know, like moving experience of time where like I didn't, yeah, I just, just weird.
Dude, the human brain is so funny, especially with flow states. Like I feel like this all the time when I'm like, oh, I'll make 100 of this. I'll make like 1,000 of these things. Like, oh my god, like why draw one when you can do as many as possible? And then you get into it, and then your brain's like, I'm bored, I'm done. And you're like, no, you're like, you stop it. You have to stick with me.
You're like, yeah, I need to be here forever. I'm trying to see if I can set up a camera so I can. I wish there was a way to zoom out on this, but there's not.
Oh, I can also share, instead of you pulling up the stream, I can share it in Discord if that's better.
I'm just getting the live stream rolling. I'm gonna stream us on TikTok as well. Shit. I'm trying to see if there's a way I can get your camera, your stream on my phone, so people could see the art, or they could just I could aim it at me and they could see the guitar and then.
Oh yeah, we have to do that. We have to look up how the TikTok thing works, if it's possible for us to.
If it's possible for us to what?
To stream directly to TikTok through my computer.
Oh yeah, we do need to do that.
Yeah, we should figure that out for next week, and then we can do a vertical one. You know what I mean? So that it would just strictly be for like Twitter and TikTok, Instagram, and try that out.
Yeah, that would be cool. Until then, they can kind of see there's this like decent enough view of the screen that I'm mitigating from a slightly angled. That'll be good enough.
It's fun. I've already gotten 4.
I think your stuff's the more interesting visual content than watching me flip pedals and play guitar. I mean, the playing guitar part's kind of interesting. It would also be interesting at some point if we could figure out how to get like a tiny video stream of like the guitar.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
See like me playing too, but I don't know. That's of the things of import, not in the highest order.
The neck camera, the capo,
GoPro.
The capo that's actually a camera.
No, I wear a GoPro duct tape to my head, and that way people can see what I'm looking at my hands, and then they can also see. They can see what I'm doing when I'm messing with the pedals. Because sometimes in these streams, I'm not really even playing guitar. I'm just like
he just walks away,
turning knobs.
He gets a good enough looper situation going on, then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go take a 15-minute break.
Oh no,
no, I know. I just think it's funny.
No, I mean there are some spots where I like detune or I catch my breath, but the biggest things are just like, where am I not making sound? I should have sound now. Direct is on. The gain is on. The microphone cable's plugged in. All the pedals light up. Does that one light up? That one does not light up. That's the answer. That one got unplugged somehow. This is the fun, sexy, and exciting part of dealing with too many Fucking pedals. You gotta deal with all the, like, what ifs. That sucks on stage sometimes. Come on, man.
You're like, what does this pedal do again? Where does this plug in?
Like, it's not usually, like, where do things, like, plug in? That's the problem. It's like, oh, come on. Is this cable broken? This cable might be broken. It's like, sometimes there'll be stuff that's like, I don't need to stop. Oh, we had to plug in the wrong thing. No.
It's okay. Since we're doing 50 of these rectangles, I've already gotten started. and now what I actually like about this idea that I didn't even think about what is it's very conducive to the before and after stream as well, because they're almost like these little glimpses. They're just like sentences, of like, oh yeah, this is the like podcast, this is the thing that just happened.
Right. Oh, you know what? I thought it's in the wrong spot. No, I thought it's in the right spot. See, it's always a question of, like, is it the gear or am I using the gear wrong somehow? Which answer is usually both in different times. Or is this pedal fucking broken now? Or is this power cable not working? These are all the questions I have. Oh. I have an idea now. I'm learning, Gunner. I'm dumb, but I'm not dumb. So this, for some reason, I'm like, this one pedal doesn't like the stereo cable I have going into it, but the other one had no problem with that the other day, so I'm gonna switch those in order.
He switched.
I don't always need to be. I need to be smart. You need to be smart. Do anything in life.
Just be smart.
Or you need to just stick with it. You actually really need to be smart to do a lot of stuff.
You know what?
I
Just
think
be smart.
most people overrate the idea of smart to be like a specific school thing too. And like smart usually is just like getting good at something, which I feel like most people can do.
You giving me too much credit. I'm just a dude.
Okay. Well, we're cycling through some folks. What's up? Some TikTok folks. Hello, May, Michael Boris, and Katie Arnett. I'm hoping that I pronounced Arnett correctly, like it should be Will Arnett, right? Hello, y'all. We're gonna do some music and art, more like noisy, experimental stuff than my music. If you know my music, because Kyle is a boring name. This is Gunnar Tarsa on the screen. He does the single art for Kyle is a boring name, and he's also an artist. He goes at Scribble Warlock in all the places. I think it'll be fun. All right, I'm gonna see if I'm getting sound now. I should be getting sound now. I am. Hell yeah.
That shit will make a man say, hell yeah, brother. Alright. Only 45 rectangles to go.
Make sure that none of that's gonna fall over. Make sure this will peak.
This man's got the long ass. It's a medical condition.
It's a medical condition, the long ass. Okay, cool. I'm gonna I guess go into void mode.
Okay.
I mean, I to send audio your way.
Yeah.
Can you give me a typical Discord
Yes.
thumbs up of or just you can write on the screen, I guess.
Yeah. I'll write something. Mm, did you already switch?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I was like, I don't think you switched.
No, yeah, sorry. Thanks. I have to change all the voice and video. Okay, I'm switching over.
Yes. 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 Mic check. 1, 2. 1, 2. I heard a noise. And we will see. For anyone who's tuning in on Twitter or Twitch, I'm Scribble Warlock. I love you with all my heart. Yeah. We're doing music and art. This is GUYDIDAIL. I'm Gunnar Tarso, Scribble Warlock. This is Kyle Lewis, Guitar Man. This piece is called Insanity. I'm going to draw 50 different things and then put them all together.
Thank you.
Boom. I don't even think that was 50. I think it was less than 50, and that's okay. Uh, I really liked this format. To all of those folks viewing on Twitch, howdy. Hope you enjoyed. That was probably like an hour, 20 minutes, hour and a half of some good stuff. Dude, what do you think? That was so much fun.
It was fun. It took me a while to kind of get into like my headspace, you know, like just to kind of like let go of like, you know, like to let go of what I was doing, and just kind of like make shit.
Yeah. Yeah. There. It took me a while too. You know, like having. We've done a lot of different things together, and it's easy when my mind gets triggered to a certain thing. You know, like maybe some of our old rules that we would use, or some of the feelings that you were making with the sounds. But like I wasn't really thinking about the like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of different pieces and I'm putting them together in the narrative part of it. And then like occasionally, or like all of a sudden I was like, man, that would be really fun. And so I tried to do some where they were like definitely connected.
Right.
It was weird though and fun, and like I really like this too because no, you can't see the layer tool since it's just like presenting the layer. You can't see all my brushes and you can't see all my like distortions, and so I think the like quick layer shifting, like flipbook almost, added to the like time element. Like I thought there was some really cool performative stuff in this one where I was like, oh, this could be interesting. You know what I mean? Like where someone sits down and gets this. It isn't just like one piece that's getting destroyed. It's like, oh shit, it's a flip book.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that concept is cool. I have to do. Oh, I didn't realize my thing's still charging. There you go. I have to do a better job of like checking in more often. I like what you're talking about, but I like on my side, I ended up just not seeing a lot what happened because like I was so used to like kind of getting into flow and doing some things and then checking in kind of where the painting is at essentially, you know, every so often. Whereas here, like checking in just where it's at like every once in a while is like not helpful. Because it's like, oh, this might be gone. So like sometimes I would like check in and be like, all right, this is the vibe he's in, cool. I know where I'm at. But I sort of lost some narrative myself where I think if I would glance more or you know, the other thing I thought about is like if I streamed you on my phone instead of just on the computer, I put the phone on the ground where I'm looking at all these pedals.
Oh yeah. That's a good point.
But I just didn't think about that. So I can do that now. That would be better.
All right, I have the stream on a screensaver at the moment. I'm trying to see if I can take all of the images at once and then drop them into a file. There was 43 of them, which is pretty sick, I gotta say. So a few short, but I don't think that matters. I think skipping some spaces as I put the image together.
Yeah, you could just have some holes, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I think if you had like an actual, if you like say you have your pedals, right, and then you have like a monitor and it's your phone, right, but just like picture painting the like the theatrical part of it picture. So it's like, okay, you got the monitor and then you see what's happening, and then if I had like a way to transition between the layers a little better, like that would be really cool.
Yeah. I also could see us like doing something kind of that's like feels like in between the two of like you essentially have four different paintings you're working on,
Mm-hmm.
and then like it could be like four quadrants of like a bigger square or a bigger rectangle or something like that, and then you like, or if we're doing the vertical one, it could be three, right? And the I guess this would only work in the vertical in the end, not in the inner. Okay, so let's think about the vertical video, right? It's like you've got three, and three they're each three vertical slices of like essentially three tableaus. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And so then like you can kind of switch back and forth between some. That could be cool too. Where they're sort of disconnected, but then they get presented in the end as like almost like three different separate events. And maybe as we learn about other events, like thinking about this, like kind of like imaginary narrative we've been talking about doing, I could see that being cool. Being like as we learn about one narrative, that kind of influences something that's there in the other one. Um, yeah, I when you first said you were, gonna do like this insanity model of like a lot of different things. My first like idea was like, okay, I need to make a lot of stuff. I need to make a lot of
Yeah.
quick ideas. And then like my thought was like, well, musically I've tried that before, and it wasn't as satisfying as like finding spaces to sit into and like finding ideas to come back from and in that kind of thing. So I was like trying to say like to myself, okay, if I'm not necessarily going to look to come back, like to have to switch quickly, what is interesting about how it is interacting? And I thought it was interesting, kind of like, and maybe you feel the same, or maybe I'm smoking crack here, but like
Dude,
sometimes
share.
I would still be an idea, and that would influence where you started on a panel,
Mm-hmm.
but then I would transition at some point, and like it would affect how you finish the panel, and then also how you started the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it wasn't so not worrisome is not the right word, but like I wasn't so I guess put off when the modes weren't necessarily matching.
Right.
Or like you just said, where like if the mode was like in tune and then it kind of like went out a bit, where like you were sticking with a motif and then I was like I was kind of like searching, or vice versa. Like the one of us just kind of found ourselves like lost or searching, or I didn't mind that so much because when the moments hit, it just like God, it put such a smile on my face. Like there's one in here, which I should just pull up the other file again, and then we can like look at some of these. But there was one in here where there was like a welcome to the jungle riff going on, and I wrote like Tommy Lee stole my wife, and I just like
Oh, the cowboy boot one.
the cowboy boot with that one just that one hit. And then like there was some just like color fields with some of the motifs you were doing that I thought worked really well together. Yeah, there was just like I feel like there was so much, at least on my end, that reminded me of what we used to make, like in person, and like shorter, more rule based stuff. And like I felt like I was more restricted because I was like, I don't want to like build these up too much because I'm like trying to get to the end. And so
Right.
like some of these, like where it's just a mark, or like I was like changing the size of the brushes while drawing, and I was like, I've never even done that on Procreate. So it kind of felt like I was discovering these new things. Yeah, it felt really, really fun.
Yeah. I almost wonder too if there's a way to highlight some of these like especially big moments, because like I think what ends up happening in a lot of this is you end up like searching for what ends up being like the profound points, and like to me the ones that really hit for me
Mm-hmm.
was, I mean, I obviously like we've done this one a whole bunch because it's easy to do and it's always sometimes fun sounding, but if you do the like the what's the movie? It's
Oh yeah, yeah.
the
2001.
2001: Space Odyssey, because I'm just doing an overtone chord like the piece. So that's just from Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Strauss, and the big overtone chord that he does there. But like yeah, like that's almost been like reified, right? And so like you draw the big obelisk, like that really was fun because I'm like okay, I find like a piece to grab onto there. I really loved the when I was doing the kind of like almost like I would say like Hollow Knight like deep nest sounds,
Mm-hmm.
and you did the text that was got blurry, and then it like led to the guy like falling with the blur effect on him.
Yeah.
That ruled for me.
Yeah, that ruled.
And then the other one that really ruled for me was the Jesus hands.
Yeah. Yeah. The stigmata all of a sudden, like
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked the one before the cowboy boots was the phone ringing. I was like, stop the ringing, and then you
the phone
and then
ringing
you really pulled that off. Like you're just like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do that. And then had this like wailing ringing thing.
Yeah, the thing that was interesting to me about it is I got this accidental groove. I slowed down a delay thing I had going on there, and then it just sort of like was rhythmic in a cool way, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm just keeping this rhythm. Like this is the groove now, I love the hydraulic press. I just thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
So the one thing I'm wondering about here, right, is like there are some moments here that are so okay, like if I'm looking at the visual parts here, obviously the ones that were most significant to me, the Thus Spoke Zarathustra. So if I'm looking at these, it's the second column, the third from the bottom. Open your hole. The one above that, and then the one two above that, the stigmata is what you call it, the Jesus hands.
Mm-hmm.
Then the one to the left of the Jesus hands, and then the phone. Those were probably the most. Oh, and the ghosts. Third column, second from the bottom, the three faces.
The ghosts, yeah.
So, what were you saying?
Oh, I'm just gonna bring some of these other ones in now that I have more. I made it one bigger since I didn't hit 50.
Okay.
So then we can have. There's a couple missing. I think like just 8 or so, but that's okay because some of them were done. Dude, the Pac-Man thing, the waka 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 waka.
Yeah.
Waka.
I didn't even realize I was doing that until.
Actually, this might actually be perfect. Let's see, we have one. I have 5 left. Okay, I'll just put insanity at the top. And then I'll put I'll do surrender since we were talking about that. And then this guy. You setting up with the cables. Yeah, and so like I mean for me, one thing that I'm like looking at right here is like how does this all like work together? And I was using a strict palette of like 9 colors, but like I think it could probably be even less to make it and I was only using crayon brushes, and so like there was some things like keeping it tied, but I definitely think it could probably be even more.
Yeah. The other thing I'm wondering here is like, and this is dumb, this is gallery brain.
Uh-oh, gallery brain.
If the presentation is most effective to look at all at once, or is the presentation most effective to look at sculpture style where you can only see part of them at any given time?
Yeah. I think the most effective is like definitely when it's happening, right? Like,
Sure. But like, I guess what I'm saying is like,
yeah.
let's say you took 4 rows of this and turned them into an obelisk.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I could go and walk around them and see some of them. And you probably can put the most salient ones, like the ones that are like the best looking, not all in the middle row, but towards the middle of each pillar.
Yeah.
So that's the one that like the eye is drawn to.
Oh man, I actually really like that the sort of like if these were objects, right?
Right.
And they were like sort of Lego bricks or Jenga blocks, and then you have 4 on each face, and then they're just kind of stacked and kind of tossed around the room, and so you're just like you have all these weird like glimpses that you could like pair together. Like you could pick them up and put them elsewhere, and you could
Right.
like, you could make a narrative story with them by like stacking them.
Yeah.
Like into these like weird tall pillar things. Like so, say how these are like what 7 tall? I think 8 tall. Yeah, math is hard. So like 8 tall, but instead of them being like right next to each other, they were just kind of like scattered about.
Yeah. Or like even if like let's say there's 3 obelisks.
Mm-hmm.
What if we did a whole bunch more of these of the same color palette, even though you're saying it's probably too much overall, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
we
I
can
think you
take
might be
more.
right. It's probably not the color palette. It's just like how they're displayed, right? Because like in this
Hear
like
me
grid
out.
form, it's just like eh.
Right. Hear me out. Hear me out. I've got somewhere I'm going with this.
Okay.
I do think that less colors would be good,
Yeah.
but dream to imagine me. Uh, we make way more of these, right?
Yeah.
We keep making them,
Yeah.
and then you take it to you make them into an obelisk, and one of the obelisks takes a whole bunch of these with this color palette, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we make a whole bunch more and make a second obelisk out of like a 3-color or a 4-color palette. And then you make a whole bunch more and it's like all black and white with maybe some red, but very sparse red on the third one. And so then you have like 3 things, and the relationship to each other is that they're the same format, and then the narrative relationship to each other is that they have disparate levels of color palette.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're kind of all individual things. They're kind of all things that relate to each other. And I don't know, for some reason, big keeps.
So I'm gonna do this real quick, just to
Like
see.
I don't know why my brain says either very big or very small.
Mm-hmm.
Like I either want to see like 100 of these crammed into a really tiny area, where I have to go and like get really close and put my face in it and be like look at them, or I want to see big, like this is a scale thing, and I have to look at each. Like basically, what I'm saying is that like I think this thing that we were asking for is for someone to want to experience many, but have to force themselves to look at one because they can't really experience many all at one time effectively.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I'm finding unsatisfying is just looking them in a grid right now. Is
Yeah.
that I can see all of them, and I can glance at one, but I still feel like I can kind of see the full picture while glancing at one. And you want to sort of force the perspective where it's like someone needs to go interrogate one, and then kind of look at the whole thing, but also realize they're not looking at the whole thing. Like you have to give them like the idea that they need to keep exploring, to keep experiencing, but then it's like all fleeting,
Mm-hmm.
even in the stagnant presentation.
So what if I, just in theory, while we're just like looking at this, let me make the thingy bigger. So it takes the thingamabobbers, crop and resize. So we want this to be like 6,000. That's what I'm talking about. fill that screen, baby.
And so, like, Africa needs to invite us back. We need to do gallery part 2.
It's time.
Someone hit Lauren up. If they can put all those tattoo artists in there, they can definitely have us again. Those tattoo artists are great. It was kind of a lackluster exhibition, though.
Okay. So here's... these guys, right? We did a bunch of drawings. Now they're really small on the screen. I apologize. There's a lot of wacky things. And then... if I do freeform. Oh, snap. There it is. Make it look weird like that. And then, like, let's get this little crayon brush. Yeah, this will do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then, like...
Yeah. Look, this is.
And it's
this
almost
is
to
the
walk
person.
around it to experience it.
Yeah, and this is the.
Or what if it's a whole fucking maze, you know?
Yeah, here's your average art experiencer. Here's someone experiencing.
Wow, those legs go all the way up. They're so high.
Wait. He's got to be taller. and so he comes upon this. It's like, yes. Yes. Yeah, there's definitely maybe what it is too, at least in the shorter term, not physical objects, like how these collage better together, is that then a drawing, like, just do this on another layer, like something puzzle pieces, right? Like this, you make like a really organic kind of spidery web thing. Maybe with the insanity one somewhere, so it's like the title, it's the only rectangle. And then like you make like use like a clipping mask tool so that then in each of these puzzle pieces is one of these things, and so it's then like getting cut off. So say like it's this purple and pink one right down there, and only a portion of it gets visible in that section. Just like, I don't know, there's a better way to collage all of them together that makes it looks visual.
I think what we're getting at is that, like, the thing that the final presentation misses is like form.
Yeah, it does. The grid just is not very interesting.
It's not like super appealing unless you like make the individual images have like some semi in planned, but that would kind of ruin what you're going for.
Yeah. Oh, I guess an alternative thing, which this is something I could probably do um, fairly quickly right now. Um, Actually, I totally could do that with the current layers. Um, so if I is making an animation, and it just is what it is, right? And you could just watch it, which that could be fun. I'm gonna do that right now, real quick. That's the last thing, because you could just there's a time lapse feature in Procreate that allows you to.
I'm going to continue sitting here and not touching Procreate.
What's that?
I'm going to continue sitting here and not touching anything.
Split view with the pictures. Whoa. Okay. Okay. So then what I do is I go to
I have an idea. This is maybe I don't know how difficult or weird this is. Can you make it an animation where it flows through that fast and then it repeats? And it repeats a little slower, but not that much slower, and then it repeats a little bit slower each time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I can't do that on Procreate, but I can definitely do that.
Like if it starts off that they're all like, if it's a blur, and then basically the whole idea is like you'd slow it down to where people can kind of take a good look at each of them, but not super slow, and then it would speed back up, right?
Yes. I don't hate that already. Let me change the settings. Let's slow that sucker down.
Okay, like keep it fast right now, and then have it slow. This is maybe too slow.
This is too
I
slow.
don't know, maybe not. You know what I'm saying? It would slow down and then it would speed back up.
Yeah, so it'd be like blast off and then
Right. And it would kind of slow down to where you could kind of take glimpses.
and then it would go crazy again.
Right.
And then back to slow. And then back to crazy.
And you can have it go like super fast or super slow in small chunks. You know, when they go through the whole thing.
Yeah, like okay, I can do that with the slider. So this is just 1 frame per second, right? And so it's going
And go. Brrr.
and then
Yeah.
that's kind of fun.
I almost wonder if you could like plug this into like a jitter or like a Maximus P kind of thing where it's like it's programmed to take all the images variable speed for various amounts of time. Because I don't want it to be like super rhythmic either. Like some of these organic slowing down, speeding up, sometimes it just like runs through. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it's easier to make an animation of it, but
Yeah, I mean, I do like the way it looks when it just like this. Something easy to share too.
right.
Heck yeah, I like this. For next week, we should meet a little early and see if we can figure out the TikTok thing.
Oh yeah, sure.
'Cause that'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Get the live feed directly into the TikTok. Weaponize
Yeah.
TikTok.
We had like maybe one person who stayed and watched for a while.
Heck yeah.
But
Yeah, we had a number of viewers on Twitch and Twitter. We had one.
nice.
We had one bot in the Twitch chat. Hello, sorry for bothering you. I want to offer promotion of your channel.
Regal Fatigal. You know, we'll forgive them because the name rules. I think we all are a little bit Regal Fatigal at times.
Oh man, you're so right. But it is almost midnight, so I'm gonna call it here.
Yeah, for sure. Night, buddy.
Yeah, night. Love you long time.
Love you too, buddy.
Catch you next week. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. You guys rock.